I'm Bill McWilliam, President of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Jordan Bateman, the BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Welcome back to the show, Jordan.
Thanks for having me, Jim.
In BC, we're in full election mode. What kind of interesting things have you heard and seen so far?
Well, right now, I think the big question is, is the Green surge for real? The Green Party up to 18% in the polls. Not that any of us believe polls anymore, thanks to 2013, but certainly that does affect the calculations, especially if you're the BC NDP, who seem to be fighting the Greens on the island and fighting the Liberals everywhere else. So that's the big question. Is the Green is that Green number for real? It's about twice what they've ever gotten in an election. And could they actually find 4 ridings that they could win and form an official party?
Are they just going to play spoiler and suck votes away from the NDP?
Well, some of these polls seem to show that they do take votes away from both parties. Certainly that's what the Greens have long argued. But spoiler or not, you hit a certain threshold and it becomes more about what you're offering voters. So I do think the Green Party has escaped a lot of the heavy criticism the Liberals and NDP have done. I mean, the Greens have yet to produce a costed platform. They probably won't because it'll be a massive deficit document. There's just no way they could, do all the, billions of dollars of things that they've promised, along with trying to quote unquote transform BC's economy without just completely cratering provincial finances. But, that's a big enough concern, and they're hitting a point now in the polling where, people like me need to, probably give more attention. Media need to start taking a harder look at their platform document and seeing just what's in it.
Well, all one can imagine is with the Greens is they're against anything being built anywhere near anyone doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem. They oppose all the major resource projects, all the big job-delivering projects. They claim they can transition the economy into being fossil-free over a period of years, which, no jurisdiction in the world has done. So that's why British Columbia would be able to do that, and no one else has. Free childcare, free to the people using it, but obviously heavily subsidized by taxpayers. A carbon tax of $70 a ton, no revenue neutrality on it, and $70 a ton, and growing, I should mention, like going up $10 a year every single year. Just huge amounts of money that they're contemplating spending, and lots of democratic accountability issues like term limits for MLAs, which have plus sides and downsides that probably deserve to be talked about. So all sorts of things there that they are promising, that, they used to make these wild promises, but it was considered quaint or cute because, at best they could about win one seat and no one really took anything they said seriously because they couldn't deliver on it. But now you started to hit, 18, 20% in the polls. You're going to be in the leadership debate. You're just a Gordon Wilson moment away, from breaking through. Now is probably the time that people start to give some scrutiny to just how expensive it would be to live under a Green Party government.
Well, if they're a Gordon Wilson moment away, they're also a Judy Tayyabshi moment away then.
Well, that's true. I mean, yeah, you can float up. I mean, look, the BC Conservatives last time were as high as 22% of the polls, tied with the Liberals at one point. They collapsed down to 5 or 6 on election day, and I was just looking through the candidate records. I think they only have 4 or 5 candidates running across the whole province this time. They're basically lumped in with the Communist Party and the Christian Heritage Party as far as the number of candidates they're running. The Vancouver Island Party as well, Cascadia Party. Hardly parties that anyone think are going to win a seat. So, you float up, like Icarus, fly too close to the sun, and the wings can melt. But, it is up to the media and watchdogs like me to put some heat on the Greens and see if they can defend these platform items they're putting out there.
Well, it's very nice when nowadays it's not a chicken on every pot, it's pot in every chicken, but but you still have to be practical, I think, if you really want to get attention. And if somebody thinks that you're just a lunatic fringe kind of party, can you really attract votes?
Well, that's the thing, right? That's why I think they do have to cost their promises. Now, the only thing Weaver said about budget deficits in the past is that he thinks that you should look at it over a whole 4-year election cycle, that, your budget should be balanced over 4 years. Yeah, that's nice in theory, but, impractical, and frankly, looking at their cost items, they're going to run, massive billion-dollar deficits early on, and economic growth is going to slow. Debt is going to go up, which means costs are going to go up and less money coming in. So, I just don't see how they can put a credible financial plan together, but, that's why I want to see it. Like, put it on paper, Dr. Weaver. You got all these academics running with you. You got all these people who've gone out and personally recruited to run under the green banner. You claim that you're in first or second place on Vancouver Island. Well, now's the time to actually, provide the voters with some specifics. What would you do as government? What would you do in opposition to hold the government to account?
Well, with all these academics, you'd think somebody somewhere took a finance, an economic, an accounting course somewhere.
Yeah, the problem is you got all these PhDs and college professors who are making $150,000 a year or more, so they don't really always live in the same real world as the rest of us. Where things on paper sound great, but practicalities don't walk out quite the same. So, the Greens are a weird thing because you have a lot of those academics, but you also have these paper candidates. People who live in the Kootenays but are running in Richmond because they want to try to have a Green candidate on every ballot, even if they don't have a chance to win. So, it's part of the maturation of a party. I do think Gordon Wilson in 91 had the Liberals better positioned than the Greens are today for that breakthrough. But, hey, it's BC politics. You just never know.
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after the break.
Gem International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond producing country in Africa, located next to the 4th largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109 carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. Gem International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario. With grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold, a drill program will commence this spring to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork. For more information, visit our website, rmroyalty.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, anything catch your eye with all the different platforms from the parties so far that, hey, looks like a good deal for the regular little old taxpayer?
Well, the fact that the NDP have kept the BC Liberals 50% cut to MSP, that was good news to me. I thought they might try to finagle out from under it. Now, where you go from there with MSP, the two parties differ. The Liberals say, they want to find a way in the next term to cut it completely. The NDP have kind of hinted that they'll instead take the other $1.5 billion collected by the MSP and put it into the income tax thing. So not a true cut for that second half. So that's a major point of difference that should be talked about. The NDP also, the Liberals, have run up the debt in recent years, the debt's grown. The NDP want to grow it by that same amount plus $9 billion a year, or $9 billion more in that first term. So they're contemplating a debt of, I think, $85 to $87 billion at the end of their first term. That's very concerning, and that's without a lot of these items costed in. The full MSP changes aren't costed in that. They're very, very aggressive housing construction plan. They want to build 114,000 subsidized units over a decade. They don't have a penny in their budget for that. Even at $200,000 a pop, which would be very cheap to build those units with, that's $25 billion more that they'd have to spend. So lots of this money, going out the door, I'm just not sure how credible you can take their fiscal plan.
Also, toll bridges. Christie's saying that the Liberals will charge you a maximum $500 a year for crossing a toll bridge. The NDP says you shouldn't have to pay anything because most bridges in BC are not toll bridges.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like, the bigger question for me on this is, what's the second piece of the plan, right? Like, so we know the TransLink mayors want to tax us for every kilometer we drive through road pricing. That's on top of the 50 cents a liter in gas taxes, the second highest on the continent we already pay. I noticed that, the Liberals have been resistant to this road pricing tax. They certainly haven't endorsed it outright. The NDP, on the other hand, seem to be more than willing to let them do road pricing, which to me, just completely negates and frankly breaks the promise of, taking the tolls off those bridges. I think the NDP will find themselves in a huge public uproar and backlash if, they promise that they're going to take tolls off the bridges and then, they do, but everyone's suddenly paying, 4 or 5 cents per kilometer to drive everywhere in the Lower Mainland. So, that's something that, I'd like to see explored more. And frankly, I wish media would push the 2 leaders on it a bit more. What exactly is your plan for road pricing? And how does that square away with the toll cap or eliminating the tolls on the Port Mann and Golden Ears?
We'll have more with Jordan Bateman right after this.
Aben Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Aben's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at abenresources.com.
In Goddard we trust.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Jordan Bateman. Jordan, before we went on air, we always have a little conversation about what we'd like to touch on. And one of the things you noticed was that Lower Mainland mayors want to blame the provincial government for every problem, no matter how big or small.
Yeah, this has driven me crazy. So in the 3 weeks, past 3 weeks, we've seen 3 different issues that the Lower Mainland mayors have floated out there and pinned the blame on the province. So first was homelessness. They rushed out a homelessness count. The official report's not ready until July or August. They rushed out the count so they could get the headline number that homelessness across the region had grown by 30%. If you actually dig into the numbers, you realize that, there were extreme weather shelters open then, this count that weren't open the last one. The count was, there was more time given to the count than the one before. So, they really did everything they could to pad the numbers out to make it seem as high as possible. And, their solution is, well, the province should, spend more money on homelessness. I would point out that there's only one politician in the province of British Columbia who ever promised to eliminate homelessness. That was Gregor Robertson, and it was going to be gone by 2015, and that's really his failure, not the failure of, the premier or the prime minister or anyone else. He needs to look in the mirror for that. I also would point out that there are thousands of units of, social housing in the pipeline in city halls across the Lower Mainland that are being held up by red tape, by NIMBYs, by councils who won't pass it, by bureaucrats who are, putting huge expenses on as far as building code and red tape. So, there are solutions there. Just pointing your finger at the provincial government isn't really good enough. The second thing they came out with, so that was 1 week. Then the next week they came out with cure congestion. And this was all about trying to get their road tax in, the road pricing tax. We've talked about that. Again, as we pointed out in the No TransLink tax campaign, if the city halls across the region allocated just 0.3% of their 5% annual revenue growth rate to their plan, they could fund their entire share of that TransLink plan. Literally, they have no one to blame but themselves. They will not reprioritize their own spending to take on what they call the number one priority in the province. But they blame everyone else for it. So to me, that's on them again. That's not on the provincial government. And then, finally, they come out with a report that shows, that somehow the Lower Mainland's not getting enough money back from the provincial government compared to the rest of the province, and when it comes to property taxes. But they ignore the fact that their own property taxes have gone up far faster than the province's school property tax. Again, shifting the blame to the province instead of looking in the mirror and taking some responsibility for it. So, Jim, I would just remind our gentle listeners that, the municipal election is October 2018, and all these things that we've just talked about really are issues for that election, and the mayors know it. That's why they're trying to distract us from it by bringing it up this May instead.
Right, and May Day will be on May 9th. And there's also lots of advanced polls this time around. I don't think I've seen so many in BC before. Lots of opportunity to vote if you can't get out May 9th. You might be on vacation or out of province or something.
And my understanding is you can vote every day at the Elections BC's offices. So that's great. It also shows, I think, how people change, right? Like, it used to be election day was the day everyone voted. 98, 99% of people would vote on election day. But, people become more sophisticated. They've started voting earlier, and I think that's probably a good thing to give people more opportunities.
Do you think we should be voting online or by telephone?
No. I don't think we should vote online because you can never tell who's at the other end clicking the button. And yeah, I understand we bank online, we shop online, people meet their future mates online, but in the end, there are all checks and balances there to make sure that who you are is actually clicking the button. My fear is if you gave every British Columbian a code, for them to go in and vote online, what's to stop political organizers from picking up codes from other people, making sure, under the guise of voter turnout that you're, that they'll vote for you almost.
Or
so,
buying it.
To me, that would be really bad. I'd hate it. Going to the polls once every 4 years is not that onerous a commitment that we ask for as citizens and taxpayers.
Well, the only voter fraud I know about was the Conservatives having their bagman organizing robocalls to send people in opposition ridings to the wrong polling station or to non-existent polling stations, and they got 3 months in jail for that. Yeah.
But look, online opens yourself up to a whole different world. You talk about, Russian hacks in the U.S. election. Imagine if all those voter systems were online and could be hacked that way. It isn't worth it to me. And I certainly have never supported the idea of online voting.
Well, overall, I think the Canadian voting system, which still seems pretty archaic to some people, marking a piece of paper, but that actually makes it a lot harder to influence or hack. But if you do see the votes all come out neatly folded the same, that's when you know you've been hooked. Or been
exactly. It's kind of quaint, right? Like the idea that we, still check it off and with our pencil and put it in the thing. Like, that sometimes the old systems work the best. And, I've never seen a compelling case that online voting would suddenly spike voter turnout by 10 or 15%. If you're really concerned about voter turnout, maybe the idea of Australia's compulsory voting is, more the way to go. But I'm not, I'm definitely not a fan of the online voting because I just don't trust political partisans.
And also, Canada has a great system of scrutineers in every polling station where opposition parties keep an eye on everybody else to make sure that everything's done fair, that people aren't coerced or enticed, that kind of thing. Other countries, I think, are pretty jealous that our quaint way of voting works so well.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a community feel to it too, right? Like I'll go to the local elementary school, I'll cast my ballot, I'll take my kids along, I'll run into a couple of neighbors, I'll probably know, one of the organizers or, a scrutineer, and, there is that kind of community feel that you would just lose, if you did it online. So, yeah, I'm no fan of that idea.
Jordan, we'll be keeping an eye on them as we get closer to the voting day in BC. Thanks a lot for chatting with us.
Yep, thanks for having me.
My guest has been Jordan Bateman, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. His website, taxpayer.com. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. If you have any questions for our guests or for the show, you can email us at info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.